What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Code of the Craftsman. We're back with another episode. I'm Jay Briggs.
Ben Cowan.
And we're here with a special, very special guest today, Terry White. Terry White is a past college athlete, played college football at the Ohio State University. The Ohio State University. Has gone through various trials and tribulations throughout his life. And I just thought it would be a perfect person to have on. And just display what being a craftsman is, because we've had our relationship on the golf course. Met him a few months ago, earlier this spring, playing some golf, and he dropped some knowledge on me throughout that round, so where it was like that still sat with me, and I was like, all right, we have this platform, let's get him on. That's why we brought him on today, and we're excited to have some conversation with him.
Man, great to be here with you too, man. Nice meeting you, Ben, man, for the first time. Pretty excited about this.
So we'll start from the very beginning, the upbringing. You're from Cambridge, Ohio. At the age of 12, I know you have various struggles, various battles that you were dealing with. Can you tell us a little bit about, that age of 12, your environment?
Yeah, no problem, Jay. Appreciate the opportunity, first and foremost. I was raised in a pretty tough environment. My dad was 13, mom was 15 when I was born. So they were kids themselves, and, dad, worked and was, into drugs himself, actually still struggles a little bit. Mom, they were never married, of course. I had a stepfather that come home from Vietnam, and, he was addicted, played in the band. So at the house, there was a lot of chaos, but, ultimately, at 12 years old, come home, mom stayed sitting on the steps crying, and, our gas was turned off in the middle of the winter. And, at that point, I became a man. I sold my first pound of weed and paid a gas bill to help me and my brothers and my mom have heat in the house, because her and my stepfather ended up getting divorced because he was abusive. But the whole time, which is crazy, I loved school. I was a straight A student. Never even got my first B till I was a sophomore in high school. And had God-given athletic ability. So, was very active in sports, very active in school, but, just had these issues that, that I learned. They were learned behaviors because of, I believe, that our environment, if we're not careful, can help us to build this identity, this false identity is what I like to call it, of who we really are. It was just a rough upbringing, but again, it's crazy because as I learned a little bit about the craftsmen, I think all of it was part of figure out who I really am, that true identity. So I think that at that age, I fully didn't understand, who I was. So, growing up in that environment, today I embrace that. I'm grateful for it because it affords me the opportunity to do what I do some today, and that's to go back in and help younger people who are in that same environment, realize that just because they're in that environment doesn't identify who they are and what they can achieve.
So you had all these things going on that you mentioned, but also at the same time in high school, you were quite the athlete in high school. You 3,500 rushing yards, I believe, which was a record at the time. You also played defense. So what was that like? I mean, you were such a great athlete, but had all this. What was that like for you?
I think for me, the only time that I was at peace was when I was, on the athletic field. The only time that I felt like I had any sense of, normalcy was when I was playing sports. So I'm trying to navigate through that. Again, you want this, I think every individual wants that sense of love, that sense of identity, that sense of being needed, being wanted. And so when, I'd score a touchdown, everybody would stand up and cheer, or if I dunked the basketball or hit a home run, because I played baseball and basketball also. And so what it did, it made me, I just became a workaholic when it came to sports. I try to master that craft. So during this time of, the chaotic home life, dealing with abuse, trying to be a father to my younger siblings and all that, at home it was responsibility. At school and competing was like fun, where I could just be myself and not have this immense pressure on me to help. I could just have fun. So it was like, it's like I was on a teeter-totter. You ever rode a teeter-totter where, 1 minute you're like, yeah. Next minute it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So again, I just think it's that battle. That's that battle that I think we all deal with every day. And it's, who am I? In this situation, I'm somebody. In this situation, I'm different. And so I think that for me, it was like Shakespeare said, life is a stage and we're nothing more than actors. I played this role, I played this role. Socially I was, into drugs and sex and all that stuff. Academically, I was this leader and really outgoing person. And then at home, I was this strict, like, gotta do the right thing, gotta help mom, gotta, take care of the kids, and that was my life. It was just chaos. It was like all these different roles and no real identity in who I really was.
Certainly. So in regards to like the identity crisis per se, like trying to juggle so many different ones, when do you feel was a transition to where it's like, okay, like I can truly like lock in on who I am now?
It's crazy that you asked that, because it happened in prison for me. At 30 years old, I caught my first case and was sentenced to 18 months in prison. And when I got there, I was like, man, why am I here? Here, I'm this successful athlete, this, father, all these different things, man. And I just felt like when I got there, there's really some different people in prison. I don't want to say bad people. They just don't care about other people. And here I am amongst them, and I was like, man, this is not who I am. And so I think there, and that's when I got saved. I confessed Christ as my Savior, and I was like, man, I don't like this. The people, I started to question the people I hung around all the time, and this and that. And what I realized is that the only thing we had in common was either, drugs or athletics. I didn't just hang around anybody that didn't do those two things, that I didn't have those things in common with. And so, I started to study the Word of God, and the more I learned about God, the more I learned about who I really was. And I tell you, that was at 30. I caught my last number is when it really sunk in, because it's a process. I think discovering who we are is a process. And so for me, that process never even began, but that point for me when I was like, man, something just isn't right. And during that process, I made a lot of mistakes, because you get so comfortable in that false identity. Whenever you're faced with adversity, you run back to that, and it becomes, because it's easy and it's comfortable. But I've embraced the uncomfortability of life and learned to understand that no matter what the situation is, I need to be who I'm called to be.
Yeah, going back for a minute to your playing days at Ohio State, obviously you were a really good player there. You played the 84-85 season, top 5 on the team in tackles, multiple interceptions every year. Do you want to just walk us through the events that, while you were on campus, that led you to eventually being kicked off the team?
Yes. Again, I come to college with a lot of baggage, you know what I mean? I was already addicted to marijuana and alcohol, and, you know, so once you get to, I come from a community of about 19,000 people, and I go to a campus of 60,000 people on campus, you know what I mean? And over 1 million people in the city. And so I was just exposed to more. And, you know, I failed a couple drug tests, and so went through some treatment and that. And then I was actually clean as far as, you know, drugs, but I still drank. And we were just breaking camp. And Earl, I got back to the hotel. I just went and got a new apartment up north because I was married at the time. Got a new apartment up north, and come back to the hotel, and my roommates were drinking, and I jumped in the shower, turned the music on while we were at the hotel, because when we broke camp, we had a couple weeks before we started classes. And so we were at the hotel, and coach, you know, was next door, music was loud, and he came, keyed in, and accused me of drinking, and I wasn't. And so he suspended me from football, but he wanted me to stay. He said I could keep my scholarship and that, but of course, being an athlete and being a knucklehead, I was like, hey, I'm out of here. So that night, I had a car and was at West Virginia, and, you know, got offered to play there, and was out of there. But yeah, the big thing was, you know, I had failed multiple drug tests, and Earl had just had enough. But at that time, again, my other teammates told him, hey, he just got here. Those bottles are ours, you know. But of course, my past, you know, I made mistakes before, and we weren't allowed to have alcohol in the room. So, yeah, that's how that all came about.
Yeah, what was the conversation like with the head coach, Coach Earl Bruce? What was the conversation like when it was decided that you would not be a part of the team moving forward?
Well, he was mad that I was leaving. He was like, "Yeah, why don't you just stay here?" And I was like, "No." And it was a really heated conversation, you know, because at that time I was a self-centered, egotistic, spoiled athlete, and so not trying to hear his point of view, and also at that point I was not drinking, so, you know, he was wrong. I asked him to give me a drug test. I asked him to do all that. I was clean, you know, and so I was really pissed about it all. And then, you know, the crazy thing was, like, when he found out that West Virginia had offered me to come there, he didn't release my scholarship, so I had to pay for that first year, which, you know, financially my parents couldn't. So I had to take out loans and stuff to play at West Virginia. So needless to say, it was just a heated conversation. You know, the great thing about that, as I matured and that before all passed, I had the opportunity to apologize to him, and, you know, for not understanding the responsibility that came with the gifts. So, you know, yeah, but it was a crazy conversation. I think every day you have to be on point about decision making. You have to be intentional about your thought processes. Me knowing my situation, looking back, I should have, as soon as I walked in, said, "Get that blankety blank out of here," and you know what I'm going through, and stood up for myself, being able to tell them the truth. You know what I mean? And I think that's my goal in what I do when I speak with kids. It's my first question is, who are you? And so when you make choices, when you choose friends, if you don't know who you are, you'll fall for anybody. You know, somebody that makes you, it's all emotional. Somebody makes you laugh. You'll be like, "Man, that dude's so cool. He's funny as heck." And you'll base your friendship on that, and not knowing he may be, you know, whatever. And again, it's not their fault. Most of the times it's not a person's fault, because they don't know who they are either.
Yeah, that's part of why we have this platform, is to hear from people who have found their spot per se in life, and hopefully hear wisdom that can help them also get there at least a little bit faster. Was there something? Was there a person, whether it was a coach or a mentor or someone that something that someone could have done to help you maybe get there faster, like to get to the wisdom that you are now speaking of?
It's funny that you asked that, because I think I believe yes, and I don't know if it's one per se, but I didn't have consequence. I think that what helps us discover ourselves is pain, because I think that innate and naturally people are better when they're under pressure or dealing with pain or some discomfort. So if I would have been suspended, there was an incident. I was late for a school bus to a game. I'd smoked weed, I drank a few beers, and when I got there, the coach was waiting on me. He handed me my uniform, and he was like, "You ready?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You smell like it." So he knew, you know. I ended up having a great game, I'm not going to name any coaches or anything, because that's not important. It was my choices that did it. No coach, he didn't know who he was. He didn't understand who he was. He didn't understand his role in dealing with young lives. You know what I mean? Some people, it was all about wins and losses at that point in his life. You know what I mean? Obviously. Because I think if you suspend me, if you take that part away from me, that was my only piece. I would have done anything. Just like I said, I was on the verge of getting clean when Coach Bruce suspended me. He helped me, because it made me realize that, no, you can't do this in order, you're going to start losing stuff that you love. If they would have taken that away from me for a year or whatever, like Coach did, it would have sped up that transition. You know what I mean? Still, it's a process, just like, people that are going to hear this, people that are going to start doing these own things, start looking at identity and self-discovery. It's going to be a process, because when you first think about it, you've already developed an identity. So dying to that identity, it's tough. I'm gonna tell you, it's tough.
Yeah, Terry, I'm an aspiring coach myself. Actually, a current coach.
Current coach.
Got a rec basketball team right now. I guess they call me coach, so I guess that counts. Right? Right now it's just for fun. Hopefully someday I'll be doing something a little bit more organized. Do you have advice for coaches on how they can help players who may be going through challenging circumstances?
Love and truth, man. I think that coaching, teaching, mentoring, lead bosses, we deal with people, us, what you're doing, you guys, every last one of us are basically coaches, man. We're basically, people of purpose, man. And so I think, when that's your job and that's your vocation, I think that you have to be intentional about more than just the sport, because you're interacting with people's lives, and especially in competition. I think in competition you learn people's identities come out. There's some players that are always in the right spot, but they're not real aggressive. They're kind of introverted. So you have an introverted person that probably, if you could get them to come out of their shell, could be great. A lot of average players just didn't understand their greatness. You know what I mean? They have it, but they won't engage. You know what I mean? They won't engage fully, whether it's fear, whether it's, just don't want the spotlight or whatever. So as a coach, you see that in a player. How do you reach them? I don't think it's like blasting them out. It's about, hey, come on, let's have a one-on-one film session. And just showing them, say, look right here. You go hard here, and then the next 10 minutes you're chilling. Just think if you were to engage like that all the time, the impact, you know what I mean? So being strategic and intentional about other things, and then, heck, you got kids that, don't have shoes, don't have, and so, buying a pair of shoes and then saying, hey, listen, it's not about this, it's not about the money, it's not about the shoes. It's about I care about you. Because some kids, some people just don't even know they're cared about because of their home life, because of addiction, because of mental health, because of divorce, whatever it may be, all the stuff that we deal with in today's society. So being able to identify and reach kids or people that you're coaching, it's just, I think the bottom line is the truth. When you tell them the truth, hey, I understand, being able to have that conversation with a 12 or 13-year-old kid. Hey, home life may be tough, but you're valued, man. There's greatness in you, I understand. I might not have been through it personally, but the way I understand, I've had friends that have gone through it. I've talked to a guy on the podcast that went through it, and he got through it. It's not going to be easy, but I'm here for you. I love you. Coaching I think it's a gift, man. It's a great way of building relationship with people, because I think coaching and athletics and those things are relational, man. And I think you got to get out of the X and O's and become relational. I mean, I think when you watch the championship teams, they're in a really great, healthy relationships. When we won the Big Ten championship, we did everything together. You know what I mean? We played basketball, went to the movies. We did everything together. And I think those people were the successful teams, the champions in life are relational people, man.
Certainly. I heard you say intentional a lot. What does that word mean to you?
It means I wake up and I'm strategic, and I have a plan to do this. I mean, it's, me and my girlfriend been having a tough time. And so, I talked to her. I was like, listen, I love you. You love me. We've both been a little selfish, but I've been real selfish. I've been unforgiving and all that stuff. And so, well, what are you going to do about it? And that struck me when she said that. What are you going to do about it? And so I prayed, and then I've just been intentional about showing her that I care. And you're going to make me cry. So for the last 2 days, she's worked 12 to 8. So when she got home, I've had a bubble bath. And I've just done what a man is supposed to do. And I mean, I thought about it. So intentional meaning a plan to do a specific task. It's just like being intentional about this. I was up early. Again, I prayed. I left in time to in case there was traffic. I was here a half an hour early or so to make sure that you guys weren't stressing about me being here. And so, intentionality is a key to life. The other day, and again, I'm saying this because I'm trying to describe intentionality. I said that to myself the other day. I go to Walmart in Zanesville, and I'm there, and this woman's got 2 or 3 kids, and she's paying for her groceries, and they're all unruly, so she gets it all rung up. And let me get there, paid for groceries. I'm blessed. And so you just have to be intentional about that stuff. You see people all the time that, you guys probably have friends that are struggling like heck. Just wake up and call them. I did that to a friend last night. Hadn't talked to Eric in a while. We were locked up together. Great guy. He's doing really well. Just called him like, hey man, just wanted to call, say I love you. Shared what God's been dealing with me about, embracing the struggles. And, when God started dealing with me about, embracing the tough times, it's like, listen, these times, in 4 or 5 years from now, if you can embrace these, be who you're called to be, love like you're called to love, in 5 years, the strength and bond that you'll have, nothing will be able to come against you. And I think that learning to embrace the tough times, like me going to prison, me getting suspended, me going through all those tough times is what has allowed me to discover my identity. So how can I say it was messed up? How can I say it was bad? Because again, the Bible, I love it because it is so true. It says all things work together for good for those that love God, for those that are called according to his purposes. And so all the crazy stuff is really pushing you towards those good things that he has in store. And so if you complain and bicker and run from those, I don't think you'll ever discover those good times, man. I just don't.
Made me cry, sir. Appreciate the vulnerability.
It's who I am. It's just who I am.
I think that's what it's about.
What I'm curious about is you keep bringing up the words purposeful, intentional, but I think you're also getting at the fact that now you are in a position where you're a role model, a mentor, for example, coming out of this podcast, and people are listening to your stories and advice. What does that mean to you, being in this position that you're in now after all you've been through?
These are doing what I'm supposed to do. I mean, a lot of people can get all philosophical and get out of shit. It's just who I am. I mean, this is a no-brainer. Jay will tell you, I'm cool. I mean, it ain't no thought, ain't no, I'll rearrange my schedule because this is what God has raised me to do. This is who I am. It's about individually knowing who I am and playing my role.
Yeah, I think we are getting into the essence of exactly what is a craftsman, and we say that, craftsmen are people who achieve excellence within their craft, overcome challenging circumstances, and inspire, use their platform to not only benefit themselves, but also tie it back to a greater purpose and other people. So that's what it means to us on this platform, what this platform was created on, but what does that word craftsman mean to you?
I love this. I love what the definition. When I heard it, I was like, wow. And I think you guys are spot on. I really do. I think that the craftsman, to me, is discovering your identity and then pursuing your God-given purpose. Again, the identity piece, if I can give one final word about being a craftsman, is that we are all created after the image of God. And the more you learn about him, the more you'll learn about who you really are and become the craftsman that you were called to be.
Mr. Terry, we appreciate your time. I know I was sitting here just completely invested in what you were saying, as it impacted me, and I hope that it impacts whoever else watches or listens to this, because that is the intention with this platform, is to inspire, impact, and just put a positive light in the world. And I feel that you've done that through our conversation. And if you guys would join me on 3, we'll say Code of the Craftsman out. 1, 2, 3.
Code of the Craftsman's out.